What's happening, everyone, and welcome to the Club Face-Off. There is a huge match this weekend that we're going to talk about, but before we do, I need to say a huge thank you to Super 6 for partnering with the club. Today, we're in the Old Queen's Head, and we're going to be discussing the massive fixture as West Ham take on Manchester City. West Ham have already had some significant results this season, so Spencer, is there a world where West Ham United can achieve not quite the impossible, but something very significant and beat Manchester City?
Well, first of all, I'm flattered and honoured that we're calling it a big match. I think that's a sign of progress, right? This would just be one of many Man City games previously. Because of the start we've had, we're in the conversation, not to win the league, obviously, probably not even to get Champions League, but could we be the first team to take some points off City? Could we dent them a little bit and help another team win it? Listen, if you're looking at historic performances under David Moyes, because traditionally, West Ham have always been very good at upsetting the big teams. Not under Moyes, though. You know, we beat Chelsea recently, but wouldn't say Chelsea are a big team based on what they're doing on the pitch right now. And Chelsea were, you know, we basically scored every shot we had that game. It's very unlikely, is a short answer. It's very unlikely. City are unreal, and West Ham, yes, we've got a good team. We're way better than we used to be, and we're improving all the time. Anything can happen.
What about if it's to go your way? How does it happen? How do you win this game? Who needs to thrive? Who needs to get it right? Who needs to shine?
Yeah, realistically, if we were to win this game or even get a draw, it would be a result of, you know, a huge imbalance in XG. If you look at XG stats, there's no doubt about it. When we play City, I can guarantee you they'll have a much higher XG, maybe 5 or 6 times what we have, right? If we're going to win it or get some points, it's going to be set pieces. It's going to be Ward-Prowse. It's already worked for us. Delivering it in. We've got a number of lads now who can attack those set pieces. And, you know, if there's any area where City aren't as strong as they are playing it on the deck and doing the beautiful stuff, it probably would be. I'm not saying they're bad in the air because they've got some good, and they've got some more additions in that department as well. But we're not going to play them off the park. It's just not going to happen. No. It will be like traditionally under Moyes, even against, you know, your mid-table teams. Sometimes we're having 20, 30% possession at most.
See, Manchester City, historically at least, under Pep Guardiola, have a tendency to start the season quite slowly. Are you surprised that you've been so good so early?
Well, you win a treble. I mean, even if sides win an FA Cup, you see a bit of a drop-off the following season, let alone a treble. Do you know what I mean? So the way we're getting through sides in a professional manner is crazy to me. I'm not saying we would have lost the game by now based on, you know, playing Sheffield United, etc., and Burnley away, you know, relatively easy starts. I think West Ham have to look at that Sheffield United game in particular. Obviously, Kyle Walker made a mistake late on in the game. Sheffield United arguably should have drawn it. Rodri obviously with a world-class strike. I think West Ham have to look at that, kind of targeting maybe Kyle Walker a little bit, lack of focus, for example. Maybe Gvardiol. I mean, we've not seen Gvardiol really be tested. I think someone like Jarrod Bowen, who's going to run in between the left back and the left centre back, kind of find that little pocket of space, a bit like he did against Brighton. I think Gvardiol is probably an option for West Ham to target, but they're really small margins. I think Gvardiol's been incredible.
You know, when Brentford got some very positive results against you last year, I think there's similarities, not necessarily in the way that they play football, but in terms of being an underdog going into this game. Brentford did it twice, in fact. Can West Ham take something from that? Can you see a vulnerability that happened in that game? Did you underestimate Brentford?
Without being like too arrogant, I think the vulnerability is West Ham playing their game in a normal way, being focused, being up for the game. I've not seen enough of that from West Ham in the last couple of years. Obviously, they got us really close at the Olympic Stadium a couple of years ago. Nearly cost us the title.
Oh, that was late.
Last minute.
Oh, that you can take inspiration from that. You're
right.
Right.
Exactly. So it's all about focus. If they focus and we're thinking about the Club World Cup, we're thinking about the Champions League, that's where it comes in.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're saying is true of City with any game. You know, any game you go into, there's no bad teams in the Premier League, or maybe there's 1 or 2 this year. But there's a lot of talent spread across the league, and there's teams that we've seen Crystal Palace get some great results against City in recent years as well. My issue is, like I said, and I'm a big Moyes fan. I'm not arguing against Moyes because yes, his record against the big teams isn't as good, but his record against the non-big teams is really, really good compared to our other managers. His record in Europe is superb. So I'm just looking at the stats, and I'm looking at the likelihood of us making this upset is probably one of its lowest points that it has been in previous decades, in fact, previously. However, you know, if you look at the teams we have traditionally upset, we've had some great results against Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea over the years. Not a lot against City. We haven't had a lot of luck.
Well, flat performances as well. Like there was a couple of seasons ago when you were fighting for the European place that you got. I remember you were in such good form. I can't remember how many wins you'd strung together, and then you came to the Etihad. So flat, and it was kind of like you got smashed, and And as a City fan, there's one side in the league you want to lose to. It would be West Ham, because they did us a favour last season with Arsenal and all that. So,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So do you know what I mean? So there's a West Ham Chester City thing going on, the kind of little partnership going on.
You know, when you think about your best players, obviously what City have built and what Buvey's privileged to watch week in, week out is arguably and probably, in my opinion, the best collection of players ever assembled. Maybe not the best team ever, that's a different debate, but in terms of the collection of players. I don't mean this to sound rude, but does anyone...
Yes, there is one name, because
Does
they tried to buy
anyone
him.
from yours
They tried
get
to
in
buy
there?
him. Paquetá.
Yeah, that's true.
Look at him. He's going to have a huge point to prove in this game. Started the season, has he finished it? Very well. And yeah, obviously you've gone with the lad from Wolves, Matheus Nunes, isn't it? Instead, who I think is going to be a good signing. It's not that dissimilar. But now, Paquetá, he feels like he has not just a City point to prove, but just a general footballing point to prove. There's this kind of thing hanging over him, but he's still playing. And he is playing well. And he actually has shown a tenacity at the start of the season that hasn't always been there. I think he's more up for it than ever. But he certainly, I'm not saying he gets in your best side, but with the absence of Gundogan has gone and De Bruyne, who's currently injured, there is a little bit of an opening there, perhaps.
Yeah, that's
John
true.
Stones out as well, who'd been filling that gap. So, yeah, he's probably good enough. He starts for Brazil. How many times over the years have you been able to say a West Ham player starts for Brazil?
It's crazy.
It is mad,
Is
isn't
there
it?
anyone else, Booth? You know, when you look at their team from the outside looking in, is there anyone that you see in their team and you think he could do a job for us? He would be improved massively by Guardiola. He would be interesting at Manchester City.
I've always thought Jarrod Bowen, and I saw him, at Hull City when he was scoring 20 goals in the league in the Championship for Hull City, a side that nearly got relegated that season. And what West Ham have done with him is incredible.
How good do you think he is then? Like, what are you saying here?
I don't think
the goal he
reckon
scored at Brighton.
Doku's not any better in the Premier League right now.
No. He might have the attributes that Guardiola doesn't want, because I think Jarrod Bowen's a little bit more tricky. I think Doku's got this kind of explosive pace that you can't really buy on the market. But Bowen, that goal against Brighton, first touch out, and then he kind of dinks it past. I mean, it's unbelievable. He obviously had that spell where people were talking about England. I don't think he lived up to that when he played for England. In qualifiers, I think it was. He was way off the pace for me. So I think he does need that world-class coach to get to that level.
I think Bowen's just very unfortunate, isn't he? Because he plays in a position where there is no real room for manoeuvre. Like, you can't really get in the England team where he plays.
Yeah, he also has not. I mean, he's come from non-league, Bowen. Like, people forget.
I love that story.
He's obviously played Championship as well, but has he ever had that sort of coaching that you're talking about? At a fundamental level, maybe not. But you look at your team in that position. Obviously, Phil Foden's playing there right now. But if Doku's getting in at that side, I would say Bowen has a chance. In that team. Outside of those boys, I don't know. I know Ward-Prowse is a new signing. There's a recency bias. He's not better than the team that won the treble with you guys last year. But again, with a bit of an opening in the middle at the moment, could he maybe squeeze in there? He's a little bit slept on as a player. I think we've got some really decent centre halves right now. Again, so have you. Some fantastic ones. But are we sure that Ake is heads and tails above the likes of Aged and Zuma?
Definitely.
You think?
That's the one, yeah. I think Bowen, we can have a debate. Even maybe someone like Alvarez has come and looked very exciting for you lot. But there's no way in a million years any of your defenders get in, unfortunately. Ake's maybe the best left-back in Europe last season. Seriously.
But
he was that good.
Vardy's sort of occupying that position right now, right? So you look at him as a centre-half. I mean, I don't know if enough people have saged enough of Aged.
Yeah,
So
I think Aged and
for
Zuma are
Morocco
very
in that
good
World
centre-halves.
Cup,
Yeah.
and you've got the new lad. I'm not going to say I've seen loads of him either, but based on statistics, we've got this new director of football who's making our signings. One of his big guys was Konstantinos Mavropanos, who's ex-Arsenal, of course. Didn't really play at Arsenal. Do yourself a favour, go on YouTube and what? And
Bad idea, this.
This is just
Bad
YouTube.
idea,
I
this.
know I'm going to be
Yeah.
that guy, right? I'm literally not
I
seeing
did
the
this
guy
with
play.
Mudryk. I don't make this mistake again.
I've literally not seen him play, right? So I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert. But it's a Bundesliga highlights video of Mavropanos, and it's called Skills and Goals.
Love it.
As a centre half.
I've got a similar highlight reel for Barley.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Similar players.
Yeah.
He scores worldies from centre half regularly. So
There we
when we
go.
see him come in, it would be quite nice. But obviously, there's a huge goal.
Booby, could this be the one? A score prediction from you? Is this the one? At some point, you're going to drop points. Could this be the game where you ultimately get
I
caught?
want to say that I've seen enough in terms of even how we smashed Fulham. I was expecting a bit more from Fulham, maybe a 2-1 kind of result, putting 5 past them lot. And Marcus Silva's a very tight, kind of conservative manager at points. I think we smashed these lot 4-0. Seriously,
reckon,
and that's no
Spence?
disrespect.
No, it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. I'm not going to sit here and predict a West Ham win, but I do think we're looking better against the bigger teams than we have for a few years, and I think we'll make you work a little bit harder for it than that. I can see it probably.
draw?
If I was putting money on it, I'd say like a 2-1. maybe a 2-0. But a draw isn't impossible. I think it's unlikely we'll win.
I agree. I think that there's a world where you could get a draw. I've enjoyed this. This is my first ever club debate. This is my first ever club head-to-head. So thank you both.
It's not much of a head-to-head. It's more of a, I kind of don't want to agree with him, but I do.
Friendly
It's a consensus.
conversation.
No, I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much to everybody for watching. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, of course, to Super 6. They've partnered with us for the season, and we are honoured to be a part of what they do. And, of course, a huge thank you to the wonderful people of the Old Queen's Head in Islington. We'll see you for a pint here very soon, I hope. In a bit.